Do you love made-for-TV movies? We sure do. We always have. In 30 years of friendship, we've laughed, cried, diagnosed, and obsessed over every made-for-TV movie we could get our eyes on.
Did you know that most made-for-TV movies are about amazing people who have risked their lives to change the world?
We'll be taking you through the last 60 years of some of the most powerful stories. We'll see what's changed and what's exactly the same.
We also love a nice synthesizer and a sweet satin blouse. And we think you will too.
I'm Steph.
I'm Liz.
And this is
No One Would Tell, Except Us podcast.
Okay, welcome to another episode of No One Would Tell, Except Us. And today we are really excited because we are covering the original film that is this podcast's namesake. So we are covering No One Would Tell from 1996. And
such a great year.
We are so excited because this film, probably has two of our favorite stars from that time period, Fred Savage and Candace Cameron Bure, which is thrilling in and of itself. So,
she was my first celebrity that I ever got an autograph from.
Wait a minute. What? I did not know any of this. What?
I waited in line when I was like 10 years old in the rain at Six Flags. And she was not happy to be there, I'll tell you that. But I hung that poster over my bed for like the next 5 years. It was awesome.
How did I not know this at all?
I wasn't yet at the middle school where we met, but yeah. I mean, Full House was like my life. Still is.
Wow. I did not know the story about you getting that autograph. And I'm wondering if I even know you at all.
It was an epic moment in my life, and I waited a long time for that autograph. And she's like, who should I make it out to? And I was like, Elizabeth. Oh, but with an S. And she like got so thrown from that. She's like, so ELI. And in my head, I'm like, I'm having a conversation with Candace. Like, this is awesome.
You're like, you spelled my name wrong. Do it again.
She was like probably 16 and was like, get out of here. I want to go.
Was the show still going on?
Gurney, Illinois.
Was Full House happening or was it over?
Oh, no. It was like at its prime. Like this was like big deal. I mean, the line was so long. I waited like 2 hours at Six Flags in the rain.
Wow. You really wanted that. Was she the only one signing?
The only one. Who else is coming to Gurney?
Not me. That's amazing.
Not me.
Do you still have the poster?
My mom probably threw it out with everything else that was from my childhood.
Yeah.
She's like, this is here. Goodbye.
Right. I don't blame Kendra.
Me neither.
Well, that's amazing. I didn't know you had that. And it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
I was really obsessed with Fred Savage. I watched The Wonder Years religiously. And I did tell you that officially, like, Pinocchio was my first childhood crush. And when I went to Disneyland, Pinocchio kissed me, like the character kissed me on the cheek. And like, there's pictures, I'm like beet red. Like, I'm so overwhelmed with love. And then I was like, it's time to grow up. I'm going to move on to like humans. And I found Fred Savage. And I just thought he was like the cutest ever. And I was always
they
like,
kind of look alike.
They do. It's a type. And I, just really like, I would always like blush and stuff, like when he would be with Winnie on the show.
Oh gosh, I love their little relationship.
Yeah.
That was such a good show.
Their tryst. So yeah, he was my first crush. And so, seeing him in this role, which I'm sure I did see this film when it came out because we would have been, 11?
Oh, yeah.
So
12, 13, something like that. Yeah.
This was a departure
from a big deal.
How I knew him,
Yeah.
So yes. So why don't we give everyone a synopsis so they know what the deal is with this film?
Okay. So No One Would Tell, the 1996 version, is based on the story of Amy Carnevale, which is an awful story that happened. But basically in the movie No One Would Tell, Candace Cameron, who plays Stacy, she's kind of like this really quiet, just kind of not nerdy, but just like quiet high schooler. And she has a super crush on the star wrestler, and people think he is hot stuff, which this was his best era for Fred Savage. And she's like, there's no way he would date me. They obviously start dating, and he is very abusive. By the time Stacy realizes what she's into, she does break it off. But he tricks her into saying, like, I just really want to still be friends with you. She goes to his house to give him a haircut, which actually that did happen in the real life events that this is based on. And he was saying he would bring her home. She got into his car and he brought her out. He stabbed her, strangled her, and then threw her body, tied her down with cement blocks, and threw her body into a lake. And that's basically the whole movie.
So very tragic. And I have a lot of thoughts about what I walked away with just seeing the film and not knowing the real story. So we could just get into it because there's a lot there. Firstly, the score in this movie does not play around. So the opening music is like...
That was my first note.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, guess what? This is a huge tragedy, and get ready. And also, I was just looking at the credits, and I'm like, who is Gregolyn Williams? That's an amazing name. And who is Season Hubley? Like, who are these amazing actors? I can't wait. And then I was like, hold up. Like, Sally Jesse Raphael is in this? I'm not even ready.
Yeah, she's a judge.
Not even ready. I was like floored. So basically, knew from the beginning it was going to be really horrible and tragic and sad. And they open with the sort of pretense to her murder. And you basically know that like something horrible happened to her, but it's not shown yet, which is kind of, I think, typical in these types of movies. It's kind of like, here's some foreshadowing. Don't worry, something horrible's coming, but you have to wait to see what it is.
Yes. And might I add, this is definitely Candace's like late Full House era.
Yes.
This haircut, based on her haircut alone, I knew this was the post-Steve breakup and the dating Viper era.
Yes.
So that haircut was like, I was like, ooh, I know that haircut so well. And that's a good look on her.
Yeah. It's like she's growing up. You know what I mean? She's growing up. She can deal with like adult situations. So
absolutely.
You know. So yes. So Eric Balfour is sitting in the truck, kind of like warming his hands, like he's super nervous because, you know, I guess he knows that Fred Savage's character is like gonna do something horrible, but just sits in the van. And then, oh no, I'm sorry, it's like a monster truck, actually. It's like an intense monster truck. Yeah, it's got the
lights at the top, like everything. Like, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's like, I guess they hunt deer. I don't know. So it's really disturbing. And then Bobby, who's Fred Savage's character, is just like full of blood. Like he's just like coming back full of blood. So it's like, okay. Then we backtrack, and, you know, when we first see Candace Cameron Bure, who is named Stacy, she's like, you know, taking a love quiz in the middle of like a pep rally. And she's like, I'm trying to focus, you guys, you know, like I'm trying to really put my effort into this during this pep rally. And her friends are like being friends that enjoy pep rallies and are teenagers. And I have to say, like, she's sort of dressed like a mom who's at her son's wrestling match. Like, her dressing is very conservative in the entire film.
Very conservative. Stacy is 16, and she's kind of like, not a nerd, but she's just very reserved. She's definitely not like outgoing cheerleader at all.
No, she's definitely like somebody's mom who's at the pep rally who is watching the wrestling. And you know, she kind of sees like that raw, primal male energy from Fred Savage. And she's like, oh, there's like headgear. He's like pumped up, even though he's really not. But okay. And
Yeah, he's kind of scrawny.
Yeah. And then we learn that, like, you know, she's had a crush on him for like 2 years, which means she would have a crush on him when she was like 12, basically.
Yeah. But like, why does her face look like she's in so much pain when she admits that? She's just like watching him and they're like, you love him, Stacey. And her face just looks like she's trying to go to the bathroom. Like, I was like, is that love?
Yeah.
Is that dislike? It was kind of.
Yeah. There's
what I
a
go
few
for, but-
instances where delivery from Stacey in this movie is like confusing to me, which, you know, we can get into because maybe you understood things that I don't.
Sure.
So then basically, you know, her friends are like yelling, he's got like a hot body, but it looks like Stacey just did it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing.
Yes.
And then we get to go to Stacey's house, which is always a treat. And we see Michelle Phillips as her mom.
Mamas and the Papas.
Mamas and the Papas. I cannot understand like why she was in this movie at all. But
I don't know. I couldn't even place her too because I was like, I know you. Where are you from? And then I finally like looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, like she's so talented. What is she doing?
right. And then it's like, you know, we got right away. It's like mom's preoccupied. Like she took the time to put on unicorn earrings, but she's still wearing her work name tag. Like the lady is just busy, you know? She's just a mess. So basically her mom's like, oh, you're going out? Cool. I need to go to bed. Because I guess that's what everyone does when their teenager goes out at night. They just go to bed and hope for the best. And then they're at the local pizza joint, right?
Yeah, well, right. So Stacey goes, she goes out with her friend, her bestie. They go to the pizza joint and they're sitting there and they see like Fred's character, Bobby, and his friends. And the friends are all like, oh, yeah, like, Bobby, can I borrow your truck? Because like, I want to have sex, basically have sex with this girl. And they're like, yeah, you bring out that truck. Like, you're going to get anything you want. It's like a 2-passenger monster truck, but you know what? It's fine. Sounds
all good.
I guess that's high school.
That's what's going on in that town.
And and he like says, "Oh, but you got to bring the girl flowers first." And that's kind of when like Stacey and her bestie walk in. And they're like, "Hey, girls, do you like it when a guy gives you flowers?" And Stacey's just like, "I do," and that just like really rubbed Bobby the right way. Like he was like, ooh, I see a fragile little gal over there. I need to go out with her.
Yeah.
And so she
flowers are
sits
easy.
down with her friend. Yeah.
Flowers are easy.
She's just like so easy. Flowers make you easy.
Her friend answers for her, I think, too. Like,
yes.
Which is like
Stacey's standoffish. She's shy, let's just say.
Yeah, and her friend is Nikki, played by Heather McComb. I just have to give a shout out because, like, I thought this friend was really, really good in this film.
She was really good until her cry scenes.
Yeah.
They were a little bit much for me, like a little forced, but those faces were unbelievable. But so they go and they sit down and she's just like, oh my gosh, Stacey, Bobby's looking at you. He's coming over here. And she's like, no way. Like, no way the hottest wrestler wants me.
Right.
And he grabs a red rose that like the restaurant had put on each table and he hands it to her.
Yeah.
And that to me was really significant because the red rose shows up throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
And the one part that really pissed me off about the red rose is that at the end, her best friend Nikki brings red freaking roses to like the spot where she died. I was like, you could have picked any other color in the world and you pick red? Like the thing that started this?
Yeah, like isn't white the color of like death in terms of
remembrance? Yellow. Yeah, or she loved pink. Like there's a reference in there where she talks about how much she likes pink. Like it's really short. And I'm like, you still bring red? Girl, do your homework.
That was a miss.
Come on.
That was a miss.
Yeah. So anyways, like Stace is over the moon. She's like, he likes me. There's no way. Blah, blah, blah. And is that when she comes home and her mom's like, oh, my date got canceled again? And she's like, Mom, stop making excuses for Rod.
Well, I think first Rod belittles the outfit that the mom is wearing like in
Oh.
front of Stacy.
Okay.
And, you know, it's sort of like that's the first indicator that Stacy has not had like a strong role model in terms of like dealing with men in relationships. And then the mom's like, it's okay, like smile before like that perfect man of yours sees you upset, even though it's like she hasn't even met the man yet that Stacy's interested in. And it's that attitude that's like, just don't, you know, ever let them know you're upset, you know.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then it's beach party time.
Well, wait, before we go into that, like I have to bring up the fact, no, wait, they do beach party time? Is that when he invites her to the beach?
So
to,
they
like, hang
invite
out?
her to the beach when they're at the pizza parlor. And then
Okay, yes, you're right.
And
I
then we get
gotcha.
a glimpse of her mom with Rod. And I mean, again,
Yes.
it's sexy, but it's dysfunctional. You know?
It's very dysfunctional.
Very dysfunctional. They're too old to be acting that way, frankly. So yeah, then at the beach party, she meets his cousin, right?
Yes.
And-
she meets Bobby's cousin.
Right. And the cousin's
girl.
like, ooh, the family's a little messed up. Like, but not in a serious way. Just kind of like, just a heads up, we're really screwy, you know?
Yeah. And then when she like talks about that, she's like, don't tell Bobby that I told you that though, okay? And in my
Right.
head, it's like, oh, warning sign number 1, your own cousin's like afraid of you. So that's not good.
Well, and to be honest, like, this might sound a little brash, but at that age, it's like if someone's like their family's messed up, that person probably hasn't had the chance to like overcome that or, you know, go through that the right way. And that is a
Yeah.
pretty significant warning and consideration. But, you know, Stacy, I mean, this character at least is kind of written in more of a hollow way. So we don't really ever feel what she's feeling, I think. I mean, that's kind of something that I took from this in general. So of
Yeah.
course she doesn't like listen to the cousin because like, why would she?
No.
And then he's like sitting with that other girl like the whole time at the beach.
Carla.
Yeah, like who we see her stomach in every single scene of this movie.
Yeah. Baby T's were her best friend.
Yeah.
Let's just say. But
Yeah.
yeah, and she's kind of like all over him, and her cousin's just like, oh, the more that she tries, the less that he'll want her and things like that. Like he definitely, it gives you indication that he's looking for a very controllable person, someone who's very submissive and very like wafy. And that is everything that Stacy projects, which I think is interesting because the actual person they base this off of, I don't think she was like that at all. I think she was just a young girl.
Yeah. And I also think like just from a casting perspective, like I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that like Candace Cameron Bure could have like really messed Fred Savage up. Like physically, like I don't think that it came across that he was like overpowering in that way. Like I think she could have like kicked his ass. So
she's pretty muscular. She's very toned.
that was troubling.
Definitely.
That was troubling for me. A little bit of a mismatch, but
Yes.
you know, speaks to the star power of like the teen actors of the 90s. Like they were both huge stars. And it's like, let's give them some grit, you know? So
Yeah.
then
Give them some grit.
you know, they're finally like, they're going for a walk, which is kind of why Stacy went in the first place, to hang out with him.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, you know, he's like, my dad is
They
messed
find
up.
like a secluded spot.
Yeah.
And
And
they start like telling each other, like she starts telling him about kind of how her dad's not in her life. And he's like, yeah, like my family's screwy too.
that's right.
And then they kiss.
Yeah.
And it's just like magical and very like, I thought that was done very well. Like that would be very high school like and very magical. Like to be alone, like with a boy in the woods that you really like and he's listening to you.
Yeah.
And like, I definitely could see myself in her shoes and be like, oh my gosh, this is just the best night of my life. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that confused me though is that I think the location for the movie was like Arizona, and like they're at the beach a lot, and I'm like, what's the beach? Like, is it a lake? It must be a lake.
Yeah, I think it is a lake. I think they do refer to it as a lake, but it's
Okay.
just like, yeah, it was a weird location. It was definitely very like deserty and dusty.
There's a lot of sand.
And then there's like this lush lake.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense, but
hey,
few things do in
it's
lifetime
romantic.
movies.
It's romantic. Yeah.
Yes. And one thing I do want to note, this was important to me before we got to this scene, is that she watches Bobby like at a match, and the coach, he says to him, guys, listen, it's not about strength. It's about control. How do you get control? You demoralize your opponent. And I was like, wow, that's basically 101 for like what he's going to do to her later. Thanks, coach. Why are the coaches so terrible? There's good coaches out there. And the ones in this movie, they're always the ones that are like teaching these young men how to be like controlling murderers. I don't get it.
It's true. Yeah, that's definitely going to probably, make it into one of our categories later on, because it's like we see a lot of toxic
Bad
coaches and like just male leaders in these movies. And it's like, they're not helping these young men learn how to be human.
Yeah, it's always the coach that is just like says these things. I don't get it, but
it's really messed up.
Okay, so bringing it back, it is. So she's super excited, and when she gets to school, lo and behold, another red rose sighting.
Serious.
He has a red rose with a note.
It's official. It's official, guys.
It's official. So then she like starts hanging out with him at school. I think she's like pretending to like tutor him. Like they're just finding a way to like hang out. And some other boy comes into the room that's obviously Stacy's friend. And he's like, hey, Stace, are you coming to the student council meeting? Like totally benign, just like sweet. And Fred Savage, Bobby's like, what? Boom, and gets up. And she's like, what's going on, baby? Like,
right.
Oh, I'll be right back.
Well, and then her friend, because her friends come too, right? And they're like, we're normal teenagers. And he's like, oh, I've had it. Like, it's so annoying.
Your guys are so, I mean, they were kind of annoying, but like he's like, yeah. So he like pushes her in the library, and that's the first time you see abuse. I mean, it's like straight out the door.
Yeah.
Like this guy's not, he's showing his true colors like immediately, and she's just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like, and he's just like, oh, sorry, I just want to be alone with you. Like you told me we'd be alone. And then he gives her like a hug, and he's like, I'm sorry, Stacy. Like, I didn't mean to get so mad. And he also says many, many times in it, why do you get me so mad? Like, why do you push me to my limits, Stacy? And he's always putting the blame on her. Like she's doing something. Like they had an agreement that she was going to meet him alone at the library, even though it was out of Stacy's control that her friends walked in. I mean, it's a high school.
Yeah.
He immediately is like, you did this. It's your fault. And she's kind of buying into it. Like, oh yeah, I did say that.
Right.
So it's just that control.
Right. It's like, how dare these people show up in a public place that I'm meeting you in that's open to the public. So
that's right, at school.
So that is the first indicator of abuse. And that's about 20 minutes in. So it's like, it gets right to it. And then it's like, hey, more beach time. And, hey, how come there's no like chicken fights anymore? Like, I don't understand.
That Bobby has Stacy hoisted on his shoulders, and his best friend has her best friend, Nikki, hoisted on their shoulders. And the two girls are having like a chicken fight in the water. And they are wearing the highest cut bathing suits. I was like, I just wrote in my notes, like, don't you remember when we used to sit on our boyfriend's shoulders in super high cut one pieces? I mean, that was 1996 all the way. And then like his cousin is yelling, Bobby's cousin's yelling, kick her, like for like Stacy to kick like her best friend Nikki to get her down. And Stacy and Bobby win. Right. And they're just like, woohoo.
That's how they do in that family. They kick each other around, It
was great.
So then he spots a picture of another dude in her locker.
When they're at school again, and he's just like, who's this?
Right. This is like a slow montage. Like this is like a slow culmination of like their relationship, which is basically like school and then the beach, like back and forth. That's like what they do. And then her friends find that poem that he wrote to Stacy.
Oh, yeah. And they're like, come on, Stace, read us a line, which I guess I could see friends doing that at that age, but that was kind of intrusive. I mean, I think any person would feel violated if like you wrote a love poem and their friends were reading it out loud. Like I was kind of like, I kind of side with Bobby there. That's personal feelings that you're writing to your significant other. And if you're just reading it out loud, it looks like you're mocking it.
I agree. I mean, I thought that like, first of all, I was surprised he knew how to write. So there was that. And I was really impressed. And then I was like, yeah, I mean, the thing is like, her friends are obnoxious. Like they are. Like there's no getting away from that. But it doesn't mean you should shove her on the rocks, you know? So
yes,
that was, that was unfortunate.
So he like snatches the poem away from her and she trips and she falls and he's just like, why do you have to make me so mad, Stacy? Like again, like reiterating, like this is your fault. If you would have like held the poem and not like shown it to your friends, which in her defense, she wasn't trying to read it. She was just basically being like, look how sweet he is. He wrote me a poem, which in high school, you do that. You're always like, look at my boyfriend. Look how sweet he was. And like, she's feeling loved for the first time. She's excited.
Right. She's like, I've got the best 16-year-old guy in the world, you know?
Yeah. The hottie Pinocchio lookalike. She's really into it. And he then pulls out, like, because she gets pretty hurt there, like, not by his own hands, but he leads her pretty much into falling.
Yeah.
And so she's got, like, a bad bruise and scrape. And he pulls out, like, the love card. And he's just like, I love you.
Right.
And she then forgets everything. It's like, you love me. I love you, too.
Right.
And that's just kind of another way of control.
I feel like there needs to be like different language for like tweens and teenagers that is not love. I feel like there needs to be something else. I don't know what, but I feel like it'd be better if there was like another word. Like it's not love. Like it's something like chemical and, that's like been proven.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's not lust, but it's just like obsession in a way. It's kind of like what reminds me of my relationship in high school. Like I was with someone for 2 years. I definitely, I had so many. I literally had one. And I dated him for like 2 years and we definitely said, I love you, like, 2 months in. And you just think this is a person you're going to spend the rest of your life with, or at least I did. He definitely did not, but made that very clear, but I didn't believe him. And I'll change him. But I agree, like now having been with my husband for 20 years and you're like 40 years old and you're looking at things, you're like, oh, that's what love, like love is maturity and love is, respect and things like that. And it would just be nice to just see, they're never going to do this, but because teenagers always think that they're adults and they've lived it. But, it'd be nice just for people to be like, hey, I respect your ideas or, I want to get to know you. I guess it's just too mature.
Like, I value you. Yeah.
Yes, I value you. Yes.
I just think it's problematic. And I think that it's like, it's like we're literally teaching like toddlers basically in movies and things like that about an idea that is supposed to be love that doesn't really have anything to do with sustainable, healthy love. And there's confusion. And then when you can make some decisions, you're kind of effed because you're thinking that it's something that it really isn't. It doesn't mean it's something bad, but it's not like healthy, sustainable love. It's something else, and I don't know what.
Right. Yes, I agree with you. I think I agree with you totally. Like the love that you teach a toddler is like love that usually they have for their parents. So it's very unconditional and things like that. To transfer that to a quick high school relationship is just crazy and totally immature. But like at that age, you have no other life experience. So you just automatically are like, this is what love is, and they don't love each other unconditionally. I mean, they haven't even been alive that long. How can they, go through the steps of like that sort of maturity. But I guess that's everybody's journey, isn't it? I don't know how you teach that to somebody.
I don't either. And it's also like, I don't even know for sure. I mean, and I don't know, like somebody, I guess, like could be mean to you, but because we're like, oh, love is the most important thing in the world. Like it's like ill-defined. Right. Like it's not right. Like
it'll
it's not
override.
the correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
it'll override bad behavior. But I mean, but Stacey is learning that from her mom. And what's interesting is that throughout the entire film, she's telling her mom how awful Rod is, her boyfriend is, how she should stand up for herself. And it's just like that same like dichotomy that we've seen in these other films. It's like these women who know right from wrong, but when they're in the situation, it's like that feeling of like wanting to be loved overrides just like what you know is right. And I can definitely say even in my relationship in high school, like I did things that I regret. Like he didn't want me joining certain clubs and used love as a way to say like, well, you love me, so don't do this. And I was like, okay, because I want to stay with you. And that's so stupid. I would never do that now.
Right. Yeah. It's like we need to like redefine. We're getting real deep, but yeah, it just struck me because I was like,
yes, I agree with you. I think what we should be teaching teenagers, and we can end it at this because I know we have so much more to cover. I think we should teach self-love and like knowing who you are and just being friends with people, you know, like I always tell my daughter, I'm like, you can go out on dates, but don't get into a relationship. I mean, like, don't be like going around town, but like, just enjoy another person's company, learn from them. I just don't know if that's too mature for a teenager. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I think the idea of loving someone before you're like intimate is off a little bit. Because if most teenagers are going to be a little bit intimate or a lot intimate, I feel like their definition of love is messed up. And so it shouldn't be equated with that. Like if you're like, I'm not making out with him until I know he loves me and he's mean to me, but I know he loves me. It's like, that's not right.
Yes. I just think that in general, at that age, you should just be focused on yourself and focused on school and your friends and growing yourself as a person and letting that come later. Because honestly, guys at that age, they're really immature. It's not even like a slight. It's just, for the most part, fact. So he's pulling out the love card and she's like, okay, I really want to meet your mom. Like, we've been dating. We're in love. It's been 2 months. And he's like, you're never meeting my mom. Like, never, ever, ever. And she's just like, oh, okay, well, you come to my house all the time and my mom knows you. And he's like, nope. And the only glimpse we really get of his mom in the beginning is he goes to his house to get clothes. Yeah. And she's like, aren't you going to help me with the lawn? And you don't even see her. And he's just like, no, Mom, like you do nothing all day. Go watch TV. Like you suck. And then he's angry and gets in the car. And,
which also really like, do they even have a lawn? Isn't it like a house and a bunch of sand?
It's a bunch of sand, with a really terrifying like horror film, like that blue and white steel swing set from 1970s. Like that's out there, which that one's so scary. But there's no lawn. So
so then it's like Stacey, you know, it's time for a makeover because she needs to get rid of like her Tupperware infomercial duds and she needs to get sexy.
So she gets a jean skirt.
She gets a jean skirt, and that's the first time her friend sees bruises on her.
And when she's in the changing room and she's trying it on.
Yeah. And she's like, what the F? And, you know, Stacey's like, oh, we were like at the beach. And like, we learn, you know, they hooked up basically.
Right. And that's how she got bruises from rough sex, not from like him beating her, which it's both.
Yeah, it's both. And also like, he's not able to be that rough. I can tell you that right now. So there's that. Then there's like a bunch of guys like lifting weights in the locker room. I didn't know that happened. Maybe that's a thing. I've never seen that. It seems like a safety hazard, but they're like all lifting weights. And then she like opens the locker and there's like more roses and he like slams it, right? And he's like, how dare you wear
he's
that?
pissed. Yeah, because his friend in the locker room was like, dude, Bobby, I saw your girlfriend. She's looking hot. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, she wears gosh, bagosh. Like, I know my girlfriend. And he's like, not today, friend. She looks good. And so he's just like, what? So he like runs up and he's just like, bam. And the
Slams
red
it.
roses are smushed. And they stay in there until her death because Nikki takes them out of her locker later, which I was like, gross. But he slams it and he's just like, what are you wearing? And she's like, I wore it for you. And he's like, you look like a slut. Like you're going around looking like a whore. And she's like, Bobby, I wore this for you. Like we're together. I love you. And he's just like, well, you have a funny way of showing it, and just marches off. And he throws her his sweatpants. Like she changes into his grubby, like non-wash, like cauliflower ear wrestling pants.
Ringworm.
And oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how much ringworm is in those sweats. Those are bad. And she's like, okay, I'll put this on. And she's obviously upset, but she loves him. And she goes down to his wrestling practice, and he sees her and he walks over and he's just like, he starts slamming her like in front of everybody against like the gym, like, brick wall. And that's finally when, coach comes over and is like, hey, like, what's going on here? And I'm going to have to write you up, Bobby. Like, am I seeing things right? Are you beating her?
Right.
And Candace Cameron, Stacy is just like, no, it's fine.
Right.
He knows it's not fine. He just says, I hope it's fine because we have like a state match coming up and I would hate to disqualify you. Coach, if you see a young girl who looks like she's getting beat and you know she's getting beat, he knew it. How, as a teacher, as a man, how can you not report that? Like, good grief.
What job is like, oh, I'm seeing violence, but it's more important that these teenagers win a championship.
Yes.
And it's so common with these coaches. Like, you're totally right. And then he says, Bobby, save that spirit for the team.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was like, what? Oh.
Yeah.
And that slam, when he slammed her, it looked real. She looked like she genuinely was slammed. Like, I was like, that was a little bit rough. I could tell. And did you notice the background in that scene was like hazy? Like they had it was like a white, like smoke in the background. Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was like risky business for sure. So... yeah, then it was like, we go back to her house and it's like we learn, that Stacy's mom just wants to be friends with her, which is like, I mean, duh, she's totally that kind of parent. But she says it out loud and you're like, she doesn't need that right now from
she needs
her mom.
A mom, not a friend.
Right. She needs a mom. And then she can't go to the dance committee meeting because Bobby wants to talk and her friends are worried and like, one of them says how pathetic she is, which I don't think helps.
They're such good friends.
Yeah, they're really mature, good friends. But again, they're like teenage friends. I mean, like there are very few that are as astute as we were.
That's very true.
So then the cousin's like, yeah, by the way, like his ex-girlfriend got slapped and she transferred out of the school. And it's like, oh, that's a big piece of information that would have been helpful
told me
yesterday. Like, wow.
By the way, he murdered someone. Okay, see you at the dance. Bye.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay. So then the friend is like concerned and it's like, I think there's another flower in that scene. Like Stacy has like another flower. And then it's like, oh, I was just being stupid. Everything's fine with Bobby. And shows the friend the janky gold bracelet that Bobby gave her over like a massive bruise.
Oh my gosh. That gold, like janky, it brought me back.
Oh, yeah.
I won't say his last name, but there's a guy at our school and he gave me, I won't even say his name. He gave me something like that and it had like a bee on it. And I was like, This is amazing. I'm so in love.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I would have worn it back then for sure.
Oh,
but
I did.
Yeah,
until I found out he was cheating on me, and then I threw it at him during music class. Gotcha.
Yeah. And you know what?
I was like, nobody cheats on me.
Yeah. That's a rough chain, too. That's not a smooth chain.
Except
he could have been hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I could have
been. Then it's like, okay, Stacey does not want to hear that he hit anybody else, even though he hit her. She's not interested.
He hits her all the time.
He hits her a lot. And so then she buys him a birthday present and a rose. Like, the roses just flow like wine here. Like, they must have a surplus of roses.
Maybe in Arizona, there's not a lot of flowers, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's like a rose in, I don't know, a third of these scenes. So then she finally meets the recluse mom in the truck who's like wearing flannel in the bright, bright sunshine during the day.
Yeah.
And
she's probably dying of heat stroke in the truck. He goes in.
She doesn't leave the house. I mean, it's clear.
No.
So then the mom's like, oh my gosh. Like, you could tell she's one of those people where it's like, if you meet her for 10 seconds, it's like, you're going to get my life story. Like, I'm just going to lay it out for you. I just met you. Here it is. So the mom's like, oh, of course, Bobby told you everything about his dad. And Stacey's like, what? Like, he did not. And then, you know, he's there and he's like, he grabs her because he's like, I said you're never meeting my mom, even though
and he
my
throws
mom is
her
the
against
least of
the
our
truck.
problems. Right. Right. So,
and the mom's just like, Bobby, don't. But, you know, what is she going to do? I mean, she's got heat stroke and flannel. Like, she's useless.
Right. She hasn't been outside in like 6 months. So then Stacey's like, why am I always wrong? And that's the first time that she's like, you know, I can't, like, it can't always be my fault. And he's like, that's it, you know, and like drags her across another beat up truck. And she's just like, no, actually, that's it. Like, I'm not, you know, doing this right now. So then I have a note that says mom's like, make another sandwich.
Oh, because when she goes home for dinner, her mom is always just like, oh, there's sandwiches in the fridge. So like she has sandwiches.
Sandwich stuff.
Yes, there's sandwich stuff in the fridge. So Stacey and her mom eat a lot of sandwiches for dinner, like, which is fine. I mean, that's totally fine. But yeah. It's referenced, though, like multiple times. So we get it. Her mom doesn't cook.
No, and she says, I think she says there's sandwich things in the fridge. So it's like that.
It's just kind of odd.
Yeah, they're just like, I have an Oscar Mayer. You know what I mean? So then the mom finally sees the bruise on Stacey's, the back of Stacey's neck. And right. And then it's like, no biggie. Like, they're both just like, okay.
Yeah. And meanwhile, they pan back to Bobby and he is like roiding out. Like, he's lifting and he's like, my girlfriend, my stupid flannel wearing mom. Like, I am pissed off. And he's just like, he's getting amped up. And that's kind of like how they close that scene there. And
well, he's probably
then,
like mad too because the roids are not working.
Like, no, they're definitely not. He's still kind of wimpy, but
he does not look he's on steroids.
No, he really doesn't. But this is Fred Savage's best era. Can we agree on that? Like, this is his most handsome.
I agree. Like, I loved him when he was 11. I loved him in this, you know?
Okay, you know what? He was cute when he was 11. He was. But like, it stops at like 18 for me. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
He was a child.
I think Candace... Yes. True.
Wait, so then I think where we left off was where the mom, we were talking about how the mom's like, oh, there's sandwich things in the fridge.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's like the point where she sees the bruise. Did we talk about that? Like, she saw the bruise on the back of her neck?
This is the first time mom talks about the bruise, but we need to mention that Stacey is back in like her middle-aged robe at this point. Like, she's back in her house robe because she thinks the relationship's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And then is this the scene after where she's in the shower and he comes in, or no?
after Stacy had the dream first meeting with Bobby's mom, and he like slams her into the rusted out truck, she goes home and she's back in her middle-aged robe, which is where she's the most comfortable.
Yes.
And it's a sign, because she's like, you know what? I don't need to be sexy anymore. Like, I was happy in this robe. I'm going to be happy without him. And so her mom is getting ready for a date and notices a giant bruise on the back of Stacy's neck.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it doesn't look like you and Bobby were just goofing around. And
Well, it's like half
by
of
the
her
way-
neck. I mean,
it's like, yeah, it's real bad. It's like purple.
I
And
mean,
then her
I would
mom's
be
like,
like,
by the way,
yeah, I would be like, let's go to the doctor, honey. Like, are you having,
yeah.
like, do you have an iron deficiency? Like, that's just,
Right.
besides, like,
Right,
you know,
that's what a
getting
mom would say.
beat by your, like, you know, boyfriend. Even if you're not going there, I'd be like, that looks pretty bad. Like, we should probably have your blood checked.
Yes. And then the mom's like, by the way, I talked to your teacher. Your grades blow. Like, what is going on?
Oh, Stace.
So
It's not going good.
then, like, Rod is outside beeping. And the mom's like, oh, never mind. I'm not a mom. Rod's here. Like, I have to go. And
Wait, I think
Stacey's
his
like,
name is Rod, not Rob. I think it's Rod with a D.
I think I'm saying Rod, but maybe I'm not articulating.
No, you probably are. Never mind.
Maybe I don't know my letters. So Stacey's like, can you ever just be my mom? You know?
No, she
And
really can't.
she can't. And then Rod comes in and he's like, what's going on? Like, I'm beeping and you're supposed to be outside. And the mom's like, you're right. Like, you know, sorry. And then Stacy's upset and kind of storms into her room. And then Rod's like, she's 16. She doesn't need you. Like, let's go dancing. So the mom's like, you're right. She doesn't need me. So they leave and they go to, I don't know, probably what, like the local lodge or
Oh, yeah.
alehouse or roadhouse.
Oh, yeah. He's lodge material all the way. You know, it almost makes me think maybe he would come across Butch like in Florida. Like they would have been friends from.
Oh, are we talking Teen Mom Butch right now?
Teen Mom Butch or Buck? Oh my gosh, Buck.
Okay,
Yes.
we're talking cries unheard Buck. Yeah.
They totally
All
would have
three
been
of those
friends.
men.
Yeah. They're the same.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so Stace is like, you know, my mom's terrible. I'm gonna go take a shower. And Bobby breaks in. What the freak?
He does. And it's kind of like, did he really break in? I don't know. I don't know if that house has a door, really,
I
but
guess it's one level. It's like, it looks like a ranch or something like that. Like, I guess it's one level, but still, like, how alarming would it be to like come in your like big robe and then like you're like there and your boyfriend is just like in your house that you broke up with that beats you? Like, I'd be like, okay, I'm about to die. Like, this is it. Like, that's so scary.
it's
And
so
then-
scary. And also, I think she's in a towel and I think she's got some like water beads, right? Like she's kind of glistening. And I'm like, whoa, this is the most skin she has shown thus far in her career.
Yeah,
Noted.
and also towel off, Stace. Like that's a lot of water damage on the floor there. But he's just all like, hey, she's like, what are you doing here? Like, but she's not even that alarmed. Like I would have screamed, but calling the panic button. But he's just like, you know, like Stacey, like I love you, like. And his biggest line that I had to write down, he says this again and again, is when you love someone, you never give up on them.
Right.
And he uses unconditional love improperly here. And I think that that's like such an important point because I think a lot of like of these relationships we see in these movies and perhaps in real life, you know, they use like, when you love someone, you don't give up on them. So I can treat you as crappy as I want, but if you really love me, you'll never leave me. And it's like a guilt / like control thing. And it's just really messed up what love is because you know what, Bobby, when you love someone, you don't beat them up. How about that? Ooh.
That's right. And, you know, Stacey's a little delusional too, because she's like, it's like, I know your parents were messed up. My mom's so messed up. And I think she's like jealous of us. And it's like, Stacey, your mom's a lot of things, but she's not jealous of you. And Bobby, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's not what's going on here. So yeah, that scene is kind of like their reconciliation.
Yeah.
And, everything's going to be okay.
Right. And they make they make love. It's over. They're going to go now to the sock hop, which, can we talk about this 1950s themed sock hop? Like,
yeah.
Oh my God.
We can. I mean, first of all,
Did
they
the
use like
prop
those
Yeah.
songs. The DJ was like swank. I was like, they went all out. Hula hoops,
poodle skirts. Like, who has the prop department at that high school? Like, what is their budget? $1 million per dance?
That's right. They should do classes on like self-defense, right? And like health classes and like classes about, self-confidence, not blow out a sock hop.
Yeah, they had like convertible 1950s, like mint, like Cadillacs, like in the parking lot as like props. And then they have like a DJ. They had like, I'm like, this is crazy. I cannot believe that's what her best friend was setting up at the gym when she came in. It was like, Stacey, aren't you going to help out?
Yeah. It's
With
like, no
my
wonder she's
degree. Like my degree in theater prop. Like, my gosh. It's amazing.
Yeah. And like, Stacey's in her wardrobe element. Like, she's got the like high button shirt. She's got a slip on. Like, she is like comfy in this 50s outfit.
Oh, yeah. They're having a good time. The dancing, they're like, oh, let's go dance. Somehow these 16-year-olds know how to like do like flips, and it's like all out there. Like, I was like, they taught you this? Like, how did you know how to dance like this?
Yeah, like Bobby's like an old-timey swing dancer. It's like, their 40th wedding anniversary or something. It's like, what is happening?
It was so unrealistic, but hokey, and I was there for it. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. Like, this dance turned him and all of his friends into like greasers, essentially. Like, they were just like in their element, and I was like, hey, do it. It's better than watching them wrestle all the time. Yeah. So then he drags her out of the dance, right? Because she's talking to that boy again.
I think it's like the student council kid that was like, can you come into student council, Stace? Yeah.
And then he's like, slapping her around in the parking lot. She's like bleeding.
Oh gosh, yeah. It was bad. And then her bestie comes out with her boyfriend to like check on her finally. And she's just like, what's going on, And she's like, Stacey, what are you doing? She's like, you don't understand. Like, she kind of uses the same card of like, he has a hard family life and like, we love each other. And her friend is just like, Nikki's just like, Stacey, that's not what love is. And she's, like, that's not how people treat each other. And then Stacey's the one that says, well, then you don't know what love is, because love is never giving up on someone. And Bobby and Stacey just like go off into the night. Like, he like takes his monster truck out of there, and Nikki's like crying into her boyfriend's arms, and she's just kind of like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And shockingly, he actually takes Stacey home, which I was like really surprised by, because I was like, I would think he would have just done something more horrible right then and there. But he doesn't. And then she comes home and mom is arguing with Rod. Because that's what they do. And so then she ends up staying at Nikki's house. And then Nikki's mom, can we talk about how she makes that joke that's like, I remember like teenage boyfriend fights and everything's life or death. Whoops. Like, that's like not a good joke to make. And, again, it's just like speaking to like, the parenting in this movie is like not what it needs to be.
Well, it's just like everybody's clueless. nobody like checks on bruises. Everybody's just like, oh, it's just normal. It's just normal things. And I mean, obviously, this is a fabricated movie based on real life events that were absolutely horrid. But it's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, the writers do better. Like, I don't know if every parent is this checked out. Like, maybe
I would hope not. I would hope not. So then we go into like the typical like steamy shower scene where you like see all the bruises. Like it's like the big reveal where it's like this is actually what has been going on, and this is like actually what he's been doing to her.
Yeah,
and
it's everywhere,
a lot
all
of
over her body.
movies have this. Yeah. So then her friend is like, "Listen, this is his fault. It's not yours. Can you please stop? And can you please just think?" And then Stacey kind of seems like she does want to get away from him.
Yeah.
Like, she's sort of like, yeah, you know what? Like, maybe this isn't all my fault.
Yeah.
And then her mom calls and she's like all smiles. And she's like, I have to tell you about how, horrible Rod is. I dumped him,
Well, she seems proud of her mom. Like, she's just like, oh, like, she's like, I'm proud of you. Like, that was good that you stood up to him. And then I felt like it kind of got her wheels turning where she's just like, you know what? Maybe I should just end things with him. Like, he's beating me. Because I think that's kind of how it went. Like, her, it was just so, like, simple. Like, she didn't even really contemplate for that long. Her friend just had her sleep over. It was almost like Stacey just needed somebody to, like, extend a hand and have her come over to, like, knock some sense into her. Because prior to that, like, her friends are just, like, kind of being over the top and, like, let's go do this, let's go do that. And they're not really, like, having a one-on-one with Stacey. And so finally, it seems like when she gets that one-on-one, she comes to her senses and it's like, you know what? My grades suck. Like, I'm not seeing my friends. Like, he's beating me. The sock hop thing just happened. My mom, who's like never stood up to a man, finally stood up to a man. And she's like, I don't know. I guess I could break up with him. And Nikki's just like, break up with him and just like come with us to, this party at this bowling alley. Like, he won't be there. Which in my head, I'm like, how would he not know that? It's like, this town must be small. There's probably one bowling alley. Like, I don't know how he wouldn't know she was there, but.
Yeah, there's like the bowling alley, the pizza parlor, obviously the florist, right? And
someone's giving those roses out. Yeah. And,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So she's just like right then and there after everything that's happened, after getting beat in the parking lot and saying that's what love is. Now she's come to her senses and she's just like, yeah, okay, we'll break up. And she
gives him back that whack chain, right?
Yeah. My 7th grade love chain. Yes.
That's right. And he's like, I'm not giving you up.
No. And she's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
So then they go to the bowling alley, like birthday party. And I understood. Okay. In this scene, I understood why her friend Nikki was annoyed that Stacey was talking about Bobby. Cause like, it's a birthday party and she mentions that. She's like, this is a party. Like, if you're going to talk about him, like, leave. And I get it. Sometimes you just get to your point where it's like, this guy is vile. Like, forget about him. Like, move on. Let's have fun. But it's also like, I guess I also side with Stacey because obviously, like, this was her first relationship. She lost her virginity to this guy. Like, there's so many things going on here that are not just like, oh, forgive and forget. Like, she's hurt and she wants to talk about it. And that can take a long time to process. So I understood both sides of the coin in that scene.
Yeah. Like, her friend's like, you're a huge bummer. Get out, And
I just had to say, did you see the opening shot where they show the table of food and it was shrimp? They had shrimp cocktail, a huge thing of shrimp cocktail. And I was like, that has so much like listeria. Like, they're all going to die tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. That town is full of like bad shrimp and roses.
Oh my gosh. Who serves that at a bowling alley? Who's like, you know what I want on the menu? Not the pizza. Give me that shrimp cocktail right now. It's like, what is that?
Yeah.
It's not even battered, fried. Like, that's fresh. Oh.
Yeah. It's fresh, bad shrimp. Yeah, that was a little much for me.
Yeah.
And then we see that girl who's showing her midriff in every scene, and she's
Oh,
like on the
Carla?
payphone. Yeah,
Yeah.
on the payphone with Bobby, and he's squeezing one of those things. What are those things supposed to do? Like those things that guys like squeeze.
Oh, it's
that-
like those almost like hand weights. Like it's just like it almost looks like pliers, but they like squeeze it to like strengthen their hands and things like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because he's like getting really pumped up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think that thing's doing anything.
Well, he can't
but-
lift more than 20 pounds, Steph. Like they have to keep it realistic for his efforts. But yeah,
Right,
and
right.
he's like, is Stacey there? Is
Yeah.
Stacey there? And she's like, yeah, hold on. Stacey magically is walking by to go to the bathroom. And she's like, it's for you. She's just like, oh, like that's normal. I guess, well,
Right.
they didn't have cell phones, so maybe it was. I can't remember back then. And she's like, hello? He's like, oh, she's like, Bobby. And you don't know what they say really, but they're just like kind of chatting. He's like, miss you. I just want to be friends with you. Like, I'd rather be friends than not have you in my life. And she's like,
Right.
I want to be friends with you too. Like, this is great. And he's like, come over. Like, you still owe me that haircut. And
Right.
which I
He's
guess
like,
there's-
I'm gonna get her back
Yeah.
by telling her I need a haircut.
I know. Well, she gives a lot of haircuts in this film. Like, she might as well
She does.
do that on the side to make some cash. But her friend Nikki is just like super annoyed with her. And I think that's kind of what pushes her over the edge. I'm not blaming Nikki in this situation. I probably would have said the same thing at that age and been like, come on, let's have fun. But she's just feeling kind of pushed aside by her friends. And she's probably missing him. Not enough to get back together. But it's like, I know when I like broke up with my boyfriend of 2 years, like we would still talk on the phone. And there was always that feeling of like, oh, I want to see you, but I know I shouldn't because we're broken up. And
Yeah.
thankfully he was away at college, so I couldn't. But if he was like right in town, I probably would have. So she's
Right.
like, okay, come pick me up. And he does. And she just like leaves the party
Yeah.
and Nikki just is like, whatever. I don't even think you see her. Like, it's like, I don't even think she knows she left.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, he revs up the monster truck and comes and gets her. Then they're like fighting in his manufactured home while Eric Balfour and
So then he's just like, you know what? Like, I'm out of here. She goes out to that really creepy swing set. And
yeah, and he basically sets up his alibi with Carla.
Mhm.
Like Carla
Oh,
hears
yeah.
him slap Stacy, and then he like talks to Carla and like kisses her just to
Oh,
like
yeah.
seal the deal.
I forgot about that
okay.
scene. Yeah, that was a good
And then
scene.
he cuts the fake flower from that arrangement
Yes.
to bring to Stacy. And I was like, there are so many things wrong right now.
Oh,
so
yeah. I can't believe I looked over that.
Then-
Yeah.
So this movie, just side note, this movie has some like really impressive music in it. Like there is a Tears for Fears song, which is like, what? And then that song Out by John Pratt, who it's like the heavy metal song that plays in the beginning
Yeah.
and plays during all the beach scenes. That was like kind of like a legit song. Like they really put some money behind this soundtrack. And also John Pratt gives serious Cody Brown Sister Wives vibes. So you should check out that music video if you haven't yet. But that is like the signature song
Yeah.
of this movie. And that song would fit in a lot of like made for TV movies when someone's about to get really messed up.
Yeah. I didn't even know these were like legitimate
so-
songs. That's awesome. Like they
Yeah,
did put a
I
lot of
was
money.
shocked.
They have all-star cast, and then that. I mean, that takes a lot of like royalties. That's really interesting. You don't see that in many
Yeah, I was
Lifetime
like-
movies.
No, you don't. You hear a lot of like keyboarding going on. So, so yeah. So then they go back to like the, beach lake situation where they all hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And
At
then
night,
that's the
it's
last
him.
thing. Yeah.
Right. It's him, her, Bobby, and Bobby's best friend. Carla is no longer in the car. So she didn't come with. And
No.
but his friend did, and they're like all up front, and she's just like, what are we doing here? And he's like, we always came here, Stacy. Like, this is our special spot. And, I just want to like talk to you out here. Like, come on, just come with me. And you can tell she's very hesitant. Like, this is weird. You're not at home. You're at the lake
No.
and it's like midnight. So what's going on?
And that's one of those things too, where you're like, where does this girl have to go? Like, she does not, like, she can't go to her friend's house because her friend's like, you're pathetic.
Right.
And her mom is like arguing and then probably having makeup sex with Rod. And where is she supposed to go?
Yeah, exactly. The one time she
Bad.
felt heard, that's when she makes a good decision. So she's just like, okay. Oh,
At this
darn it.
point, all we know is that like they disappear. He comes back and he's full of blood. And his friend's like, what's happening? Even though you're the worst guy I've ever met.
And
you know,
also you're missing Stacy.
that's right. There's that.
I don't know, man.
It's a big one.
She swam back home. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like, all right, I guess I'm used to this kind of behavior from
let's
you,
go.
Bobby. So then it's like the morning, and then Stacy's mom wakes up and she's like, oh, I have a daughter, so she calls and she calls Stacy's best friend. And she's like, oh, did Stacy sleep at your house? And Nikki's like, no. And the mom's like, where could she be? I know she's like covered in bruises and that she just broke up with her boyfriend, but this is odd.
Yeah.
So then Nikki confronts Bobby and he apologizes and says like he has no idea where Stacy is at all. And then it's like still dawn-ish and her friend's like, maybe she's at the mall or a restaurant downtown first thing in the morning. Like, okay, maybe.
That's logical. Maybe.
So then can we talk about when they're driving around looking for her?
Yes.
Okay, so then Bobby and the mom like hold hands in solidarity.
Stacy's mom. Yeah. They're like holding hands in the front seat. Like, and
Right.
it's kind of like romantical a little bit where you're just like,
Yeah.
and even Nikki, her best friend, is just like, that's weird. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, like how much more interesting would this be if they were like having an affair and got rid of Stacy for some reason? Like, that would have been a huge twist.
I like how Nikki also is like sitting in the pickup part of the truck, basically. And like, there's room for three because in the previous scene, Bobby, his large best friend, and Stacy are in the front seat. But for this scene, she needs all the space. The mom needs all the space to hold Bobby's hand. And her best friend is in the pickup.
Nikki's the third wheel. Let's face it. She's the third wheel in this situation. So that was really odd.
Yeah. And then she's like, they're like, did you call the police? And she's like, yeah, well, the police said I have to give it 24 hours. I was like, with a juvenile? Like, I wouldn't think 24 hours with someone under the age of 18. I thought it would be like an Amber Alert, but maybe that wasn't common. I don't know. That's crazy.
Well, I was more alarmed when we figured out that that Amy Carnevale was 14. Like, because I thought she was like 16 at least in this movie.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, she's a baby. The real person they base this on is literally a child.
So waiting 24 hours is basically like, we don't care what happens to her.
I've never even understood that rule. Like, I guess with an adult that has a problem with like leaving, sure, but a child, a 16-year-old girl who was recently in an abusive relationship, no, they should have the police like out there immediately.
Yeah, that was like dumb on their part.
And the mom is so calm. She's not even like hysterical. Like, she's just like, we'll find her. Oh, I called them. Hold on. I would be just not even consolable. Like, I'd be like screaming my daughter's name, like going around with flyers. Like, there would be no resting. And she's just like having a moment with Bobby. Yeah. It's like, what is going on here?
Then the mom tells the cops and she's like, she is always with Bobby, and like doesn't even mention the ginormous bruise that took up her entire neck. So the cops are like, I mean, let's go question all the teenagers at school because that's like the first thing they do always. So then on the news, it's like, Stacy might be dead, like for real. And the mom hears that, and it's like the first time it occurred to her, I guess. So
Well, she's like cleaning her like house. Like that's logical. She's not even looking at that point. She's just like going around cleaning her house, and it's like, my daughter might be dead. Oh, it said that on the news. Oh dear. It's just
right.
it's like, oh
yeah, just poor judgment. In every scene. So then Stacy's mom goes to visit Bobby, and the house is kind of made out of cinder blocks. Did you notice that in the hallway? It's like a cinder block prison type feel.
It was very dormitory. It was like, they filmed half of this on a set and half at like my college, because that's exactly how it looked in the hallway. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then she's like, Bobby, you're lying. Something happened. And then she finds Stacy's purse. And then she's like, Bobby, did you tell the police? And he's like, oh, I didn't see it, which is kind of a huge oversight on his end, because he murdered her. So you would think he would get rid of her purse.
Also, can he turn the music down when the mom is like trying to talk to him about like her missing daughter? Like he's just working out and the music is so loud. Like it was just
He was trying to get pumped up, you know,
for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. It's just like this
probably like
movie,
I know, great. I have to kill the mom now.
Yeah, like this whole movie, he's just trying to get pumped up and things just keep getting in his way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then Nikki is like hysterical at school because she's like, we all know that he hit her, like, and she has a really, really effective ugly cry.
Oh, her ugly cry is just, it's a lot of things. And it was hard for me to watch and not laugh. And I felt bad because I know she's like really upset, but like, it's bad. I was like, wow, that's a really intense face.
Yeah.
But she's really mad.
Yeah.
And the police are like interviewing people, right? And they're trying to go around. They're not checking the lake. Like that's the main teen hangout. And so like,
they weren't.
I don't, like they don't, and I feel like they do go down to the lake and they spend all of like 3 minutes there and then leave. They don't comb the lake at first. They don't comb anything. They don't see the fake flower. They don't see anything going on. It's just terrible police work once again.
It is. And so Carla's like, everyone's trying to turn against Bobby, you know? And it's like, you heard him hit her. Like, what?
Yeah.
And then, so finally, Eric Belfort is like the least anonymous tip ever. Like, he always looks guilty and sounds guilty. Like,
the Andrew Keegan lookalike?
Yeah, like he might as well have killed her himself. So he calls the police finally, and then they find the fake flower in the water.
Right. Well, he's just like, check the lake. Check the lake. Like, they're like, who are you?
Right.
We need to call you. We need more information. He's just like, check the lake. And then they go down to the lake, and that's when they're like, a fake flower? Like, they know Stacy's red rose, you know? They're like, oh, then she's here.
Right. Well, they know something's wrong because it's a fake flower. And they're like, this town is full of real flowers.
Right.
So if somebody put a fake one in here, something's not right.
She's dead. Yeah, there's someone dead in the lake. That was the giveaway. So they finally send someone out there, and the guy's like, I found something. It's like, oh, okay. So,
that's right.
So if they found a body, like, again, realism. If they found a body, would they just let the mom and the best friend like hang out on the sand while they like dragged it up? And also, the body is like, the plastic is wrapped so tightly around the body. It looks like a mummy. Like, who would shove a body in a bag and like have the features of the head, the shoulders, and the body so well defined? Like, you know, it's a body. There's no chance it's anything but a body. Like, what is that?
Okay, so then Nikki sees Bobby being like a real Casanova at the pizza parlor, you know? And she's like, now I'm certain he killed her, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's like trying to woo the pizza delivery. No, wait, before like, we had some technical difficulties. I just brought up the fact that the way the body looked. Did you notice that? when they pulled it out of the out of the lake. Like it was so like wrapped like a body. Like it looked like a mummy. Like they're just like, yep.
I'm like, why are they pulling her wrapped up like on a kid's sled?
And it's like you can see a definition of like a head, shoulders, and body. Like he took time, if that's the case, to like wrap her. Like it was so intricate. That was not a body shoved in a bag. I can tell you that. And
you're right. Like they would, I think they would secure the scene. Like I don't think it'd be like, here's a front row seat to like us pulling your daughter out of the lake.
Take like a little like surgical knife to like undo the top to see if it's her face, which Stacy's not waterlogged. There's no decay. Like she's as fresh as a daisy, and her mom is just like, and there's no protocol. Like they would never do that. They would take you to the police station to identify the body. They would never let you be at the scene. Like it was just insane.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I mean, I'm not surprised because this town is whack, but they have not sold me on this being protocol.
Okay, at the pizza parlor, I just had to bring up that note, but at the pizza parlor, when Nikki sees him wooing the girl and realizes he murdered her, doesn't he hand that girl like a rose?
Yes, he does. And
like bachelor over here, bachelorette. My gosh.
Yeah, he was like he was the original bachelor, actually, now that we're talking this out. So then I have a note about evidence going into a cola can, and I thought I wrote that wrong. But
I don't know.
I think that when they find the fake flower, they like one of the cops puts it in a cola can, like in the car. Like,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to give this to my wife. It's our anniversary. Hold on.
Yeah, like they didn't bag and tag it. It like went in a used cola can.
I think you're right.
Yeah. More shoddy police work.
Mm-hmm.
So then we finally see the scene where he kills her. And, you know, I've definitely seen better execution, right? In terms of murder scenes. And it was hard for me again, because I feel like Stacy could have taken Bobby. Like in real life, like I'm like, I don't know. I think she could have gotten out of it. But obviously these aren't the real people. So it was horrible.
You don't think his powerful hands from holding the squeezy thing wasn't enough to murder Stace?
Right, from clipping roses. Right. Just like I wasn't sold on that. And then yeah, like the tugboat thing. I mean, like that was a lot of work. Like you're right. Like he really, really spent a lot of time.
Yes.
Like wrapping her,
defining all of her body parts in the bag. And then also he took cinder blocks from his own personal home walls and
that's right.
threw her in the lake. So they don't show his friend at all, like helping him.
No.
Wait, do they? No. So they make it seem like it's just him. So one, was a friend just watching this and not doing anything? Two, I have to believe that his friend helped because there's no way Bobby was lifting a cinder block.
No.
And then when you read the actual story of Amy, which is just horrible, the killer, I don't think his name is Bobby, it's something different.
It's Jamie Fuller.
Jamie Fuller, yes.
Yeah.
Jamie actually has his two friends help him dispose of the bodies. So that's more realistic because he does put her in a bag and cinder blocks, the real killer, and sends her into the lake. And his friends had to help him because, that's just incredibly heavy, a dead body and then cinder blocks. Like you definitely would need help for sure.
Yeah, and it would take a long time. And like this movie just leads us to believe he like shrink wrapped her and like tossed her in.
Just tied her to some cinder blocks and went on his merry way. Like that would be hours of work for sure.
Yeah. So that was really disturbing. And then you know, like there's a trial and everyone's like, yeah, we saw her, we saw her get hit like a bunch of times,
And the star.
And that she wasn't a good listener. Like she didn't listen well. That's why he like hit her.
Well, that's what Carla says. Like I wrote in my notes, I'm like, Carla's the most messed up. She's at a trial for a dead girl and she's still like defending him. If Bobby really wanted somebody where like love never gives up, he should have married Carla because she was his ride and die. Like she loved that guy. She, I hope, got help after all of this. But the main judge is a wonderful Sally Jesse Raphael.
I was so happy when I saw her. And can I just say, I would have liked to have seen Sally Jesse be the mom.
Yes.
Like, I would have been way more invested. I mean, I don't know how she would have matched up with Rod, but I thought Michelle Phillips, who I adore, I just thought her performance was a little flat.
It was. I mean, I agree with you. And I think Sally Jesse, but Sally Jesse, like, could you imagine her playing dumb? That would be hard. She just
No, that woman is sharp.
There's sandwich things in the fridge. Goodbye. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. And she has like badass glasses. You're right.
No, those big red glasses. And then, of course, he gets sentenced to life. And then we have like Sally Jesse's speech where she's like, if you see something, you say something. Like being a friend is speaking up for somebody because, you know, if someone's getting hurt, you tell somebody. But it's like, okay, Sally, that's true. But where were they supposed to go? The coach? So, like Stacey's mom? Rod? The police?
Yeah. The flower shop?
It might have been the best bet. Like, it was a good way to tell people, like, hey, if you're seeing someone being abused, especially like in these young relationships, you need to tell somebody. But who do you tell when you live in a town like that? I don't know.
Yeah. So I agree. Also, this will go in our later polls and tally charts, but this is the second movie we've covered where the teenage girl that gets killed is named Stacy. So it's pretty safe to say that if there's a movie about a girl getting killed in the 90s, they're going to be named Stacy in the script. Yeah. So in terms of like the true story, we know this is in Beverly, Massachusetts, and that it was in 1991 and that Amy was actually 14. Jamie was 16, and he was up for parole in 2019. And obviously supporters and Amy's family did everything they possibly could to get that halted because he was given a life sentence.
And rightly so. And his story is sick.
Yes. So they have a Facebook page that's active that's called Justice for Amy Carnevale, and you can sign petitions to keep offenders in jail. And they also have tips for writing letters to parole boards, which I think is super helpful. Yeah. And then in 2013, there was a ruling that said that life without the possibility of parole is unconstitutional for teens because their brains aren't fully developed. But that was also stalled. And, you know, we've talked about this a lot. It's just like the whole idea behind these young killers and whether or not they have any wherewithal or remorse. Yeah. And I think his story was just so gruesome. Like, I think you read too that like they were like drinking red Kool-Aid after they murdered her, and he was like, this is fitting.
Well, he had issues before. Like he actually had, I believe, been arrested for like some violent crimes, like even as a juvenile. And
in 1990, you're right.
So obviously, like he had some issues going on for sure. And so he dated Amy, who was a baby. I mean, she was 4. She just had an 8th grade, and she broke up with him, and he lured her into the forest, and he stabbed her so many times, and she was on the ground mouthing like, I love you, to try to get him to stop. And he started stomping on her head. And then he got his friends to help him dispose of the body. And when they threw him in the lake, he said, it sucks to be you, Amy. And then afterwards, he went to a party and was drinking red Kool-Aid and commenting how the color looked like the blood of Amy. And so that is beyond just murdering someone. That's like making a mockery of it, telling that's just, there's just no care. There's no remorse. I mean, maybe his brain definitely wasn't fully developed, but it's 16 years old to be that violent and just that calculated and that just I don't know. I couldn't even imagine. I don't know. That was sickening. That was hard to read.
Yeah,
He should be
it's
institutionalized.
pretty remarkable.
He's mental.
Yeah. So basically, the other statistic I read is that girls and young women between the ages of 16 and 24 experience intimate partner violence at nearly triple the national average. Wow. And then we learned that Amy was, 14. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest takeaway is just, if you are aware of a girl in this kind of situation or a boy, it's just super important to be supportive. It doesn't mean that you tell them what to do. It doesn't mean that you make demands of them, but you have to be supportive because the truth is they don't know where to go much of the time. Yeah. And if they don't feel like they have a safe space, they're going to feel like the safest space is with their offender.
Yeah, because they're equating that with love. And, in a sad way, it's just like, that's where they feel loved. That's where Stacey felt loved. And that's why she, stayed with him. She felt at least heard. He listened to her. He listened to her stories about her family. They could relate on that level. And her best friends, they were there for her for sure. But they also, they had their limits. But that's why just finding a counselor, finding someone to have them go that's like a third party too, that can be supportive and maybe not put emotion into it can be very helpful if families, are just not available or could be supportive like that.
Right. So I think we'll definitely cover the 2019 version of No One Would Tell just to see how the adaptation changes, right? Because I think that would be really interesting. And in the meantime, I would just say, joining the Justice for Amy Carnevale Facebook page, that also supports other families that have gone through situations like this is crucial, very critical. And I think just being there for youth in any capacity in a non-judgmental way is just very important. Yeah. So... Absolutely. Oh, and remember, we should all listen to the soundtrack for this movie.
Oh my gosh. You need to blast it and pump your hands and get it going because, the No One Would Tell country music song at the end too. The country music song at the end is so fantastic. Like, they're like, no one would tell. It's like all the different scenes and like Sally's talking about like, speaking up for people. And it was just like, yes. This is great. I loved it.
Yeah,
it was a great
it was a good one. It didn't give me the feels, but it was very, very well executed. They definitely put a lot of production value behind it.
Yes.
So I would say it's a good watch.
Absolutely. This is the one where if it came out on TV, you'd be like, I'm stopping what I'm doing. This is on.
Oh, yeah. And I have multiple times.
Yeah, there's a few, and that's definitely in one of my running where I'd watch that one again and again.
It's really safe to say it's like a feel-good made-for-TV movie. It's something you want to go back to.
Maybe it's because of the actors and, the people that you see that totally were part of our childhood, just watching them on Full House and Wonder Years and things like that. But it just totally gives me nostalgia, just remembering. I know for me, like the late 90s, that was like our era, like the clothes, everything. So I think it just kind of, for me, it's like, oh, this is good. Yeah. Like this brings me back.
It's like a warm, comfy place.
Yeah, with a terrible, terrible movie about terrible things. But it's a goodie. So I enjoyed reviewing it.
Well, thank you for listening. Tune in next time, and we are grateful to have you.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.